Well, if you're in the market for a used car, well, you're not alone. Demand has been high for years, and getting the right car for the right price can be tough.
Mallory Anderson and Consumer Reports explain how to buy smart and keep your peace of mind.
In 2026, owning a car is no longer just about getting from point A to point B. It is about who actually controls your movement, your money, and your data. Some people see an old car and immediately think of problems. They picture breakdowns, rust, and endless repairs. But if you look a little closer, that old car on the driveway can represent something much more powerful. It can be one of the last simple tools you fully own. In this video, we will break down why an old, paid-off, offline car might be one of the clearest forms of real freedom left for ordinary people. We will talk about your wallet, your ability to actually control what you drive, and what happens to your privacy every time you turn the key in a modern car. And once you start looking at the money side of this, things get uncomfortable very fast. Debt on wheels. Let us start with the most obvious part, the monthly payment. In the early 2020s, car payments were already creeping up. People were worried when the normal payment hit around $500 a month. Today, in 2026, it is not unusual to see average payments in the high 700s, even pushing toward $800 a month, especially for newer vehicles with long loan terms. A huge number of people are signing contracts that lock them into 6 or 7 years of payments on a machine that loses value the moment it leaves the lot. Think about what that really means in your life. That is not just a car. That is a large slice of your monthly freedom, spoken for before you even get out of bed. You are committing your future paychecks, your future options, your future stress levels. And it is not just the payment. Long loans usually mean more interest over time. Add in full coverage insurance, higher registration fees, property taxes in some places, and you are building your lifestyle around this one very expensive object. If your income drops, if your job changes, if you want to move, that car payment still shows up every single month. Now imagine you take that same kind of money, let us say something in the range of $800 each month, and instead of sending it to a lender, you redirected most of it into something that actually builds your net worth, like a basic, long-term index fund. Over the course of several years, with a reasonable rate of return, you are not staring at a car that is worth half what you paid. You are looking at real, growing savings. I am not saying everyone should become an investor or that it is guaranteed. Life is not that clean, but the opportunity cost is real. Every dollar locked into a payment on a rapidly depreciating object is a dollar that cannot work for you elsewhere. A lot of people feel stuck in this system. They feel like a reliable car always has to mean new car plus huge loan. That is the story they have been sold. But there is another way to look at it, and it starts with an old, boring, fully owned car sitting quietly in your driveway. But before we go further, drop a comment and tell me what car you drive, how old it is, if it is paid off, and your upgrade plans. Frugal freedom. Let us flip the script for a moment. Picture an older car, not a show car, not a perfect classic. Just a 10 to 20-year-old vehicle that is structurally sound and maintained decently. The kind of car that does not impress anybody in a parking lot. If that car is paid off, your fixed monthly cost drops dramatically. Instead of hundreds and hundreds going to a bank, you might just be dealing with fuel, basic insurance, and a maintenance budget. Yes, there will be repairs. Some months you might need new brakes, a timing belt, or a set of tires. Once in a while, something bigger will fail. That is part of the deal. But when you zoom out to look at the year instead of the month, the picture often changes. A big repair that costs, for example, what 1 or 2 new car payments would have cost is annoying, but it is not the same as being locked into years of mandatory payments. You can choose when to fix, what to fix, and how to source the parts. You can shop around. You can delay some things. You have flexibility. Even if you deliberately set aside a generous amount each month for repairs and future replacements, many people will still end up with a total annual cost that is lower than the true cost of financing a brand new car. And the difference between those two paths is what you can do with the money you keep. Pay off other debts. Build an emergency fund. Put a little into investments. Take pressure off yourself and your family. There is also a psychological shift that happens when your car is not a financial time bomb. When it is yours, outright, you start to relate to it differently. You see it as a tool, not as a fragile status symbol that has to stay perfect. Dents and scratches stop being disasters. They are just part of the story. And there is something else that comes with this kind of ownership. When you are not constantly thinking about payments and the next upgrade, you can finally ask a different question, one that goes beyond money. You can start asking how much control you actually have over the machine you rely on every day. Hands-on control. Modern vehicles are often sold less as machines and more as technology platforms. They come loaded with screens, wireless connections, software-driven controls, and complex electronic systems that sit between you and every basic function of the car. On paper, all of this sounds great. You get convenience, smooth integration with your phone, clever driving aids, and a dashboard that looks like a spaceship. But there is a trade-off that most people only discover when something goes wrong. A lot of newer cars are deeply dependent on proprietary software and specialized tools. A simple sensor failure can trigger warning lights that will not clear without a dealer-level scan tool. A glitch in a software update can temporarily disable features, or in some rare cases, leave the car unable to operate until the system is reset by the manufacturer or an authorized shop. Suddenly, your ability to use your own property depends on systems and companies that you do not fully understand and cannot access on your own. Compare that to many cars from the 1990s and early 2000s. These vehicles are not perfect. They still have electronics. They still have their own quirks. But a lot of the core functions are mechanical, understandable, and reachable with basic hand tools. A motivated owner or a local independent mechanic can do a surprising amount of work without needing a corporate login or a subscription to a software portal. Older engines tend to be less highly stressed. There is often more physical space in the engine bay to access parts. Repair procedures are simpler. Parts are widely available and relatively inexpensive in many cases. When something breaks, you are dealing with bolts, hoses, and mechanical components, not lockdown code. This does not mean every old car is a dream to work on, and it does not mean every new car is a nightmare. There are good and bad examples from every era, but the general direction is clear. Complexity has increased. The number of things that require dealer involvement has expanded. The line between owner and user has blurred. Once you see that, the appeal of a simpler, more transparent machine becomes obvious. You are not just saving money. You are taking back a form of control. Of course, someone might reasonably say, sure, but what about safety and technology? New cars are safer, right? And that is a fair question. Safety trade-offs. Let us be honest. Many new vehicles really are safer in certain ways. Crash structures have improved. Airbag systems are more advanced. There are features like automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assistance, blind spot monitoring, and better stability control. Engine technology and transmissions have also helped some newer cars use less fuel and emit fewer pollutants per mile than many older models. If you drive an older car, you are usually accepting a trade-off. You might not have the latest crash ratings, extra airbags, or smart driver assistance systems. That matters, especially if you have a family or you spend a lot of time in heavy traffic. It is reasonable to value these features. So this is not about pretending that every old car is magically safer than any new one. That would not be honest. The real question is whether the extra safety and convenience is always worth the financial and technological strings attached, and whether there are ways to offset some of the risks of driving an older vehicle. Good tires, well-maintained brakes, fresh suspension parts, and attentive driving can go a long way. Many accidents come down to distraction, fatigue, or aggressive behavior rather than a lack of one more sensor. If you choose to keep an older car, investing in maintenance and driving habits can narrow the safety gap more than most people think. On the flip side, if you decide that the latest safety technology is a must for your situation, that is a valid choice. The key is to go into that decision with eyes open about the costs, the dependence on software, and the data side of modern vehicles. Because once you look past the crash ratings and the glossy touchscreen, you find something that almost no salesperson talks about. The amount of information your car is quietly collecting about you. The surveillance car problem. Most people still think of their car as a private space. It feels like a small bubble where you can talk, think, and move around without anyone listening in. Modern connected vehicles quietly challenge that idea. Your speed, your braking habits, your acceleration patterns, your locations, your trip histories, even which devices connect to your car's wireless systems can all be recorded. Independent privacy researchers, including groups like the Mozilla Foundation, have spent the last few years digging into privacy policies and data practices in the automotive world. Their conclusion has been blunt. As a category, modern cars are among the worst consumer products when it comes to protecting personal data. Many manufacturers reserve the right to collect, analyze, and share a surprising amount of information with partners and service providers. Some automakers use this data to build profiles. Those profiles can feed into targeted advertising, third-party services, and, in some cases, insurance risk assessments. Drivers have reported receiving notices from insurers that their rates would change based on data collected from vehicles, even when they did not realize that level of tracking was happening. And then there are the features that turn your car into a subscription machine. Hardware like heated seats, remote start, or extra performance can be physically present in the vehicle but locked behind monthly fees. You are no longer simply buying a product. You are entering into an ongoing, data-rich relationship where the company can turn features on or off remotely and analyze exactly how you use them. This is a long way from an old car with a simple key and a basic stereo. When you drive a genuinely offline car, there is no silent data stream. Nobody is mapping your routes by default. Nobody is packaging your daily commute into a behavioral profile. You might still be tracked by other devices, like your smartphone, but the car itself is not a willing participant in the data harvest. All of this raises a deeper question. If your car can constantly talk to the outside world and report on you, what else can it do at a distance, and who gets to decide? That is where the conversation starts to get a little more uncomfortable. Remote disablement. As cars have become more connected, they have also become more remotely controllable. Some of this has clear uses. Remote start, remote unlocking, and vehicle location services can be convenient. Fleet operators and rental companies use remote tools to manage large groups of vehicles. Law enforcement in some situations has worked with manufacturers to track or disable stolen cars. There are also systems, particularly in certain financed or subprime lending scenarios, that allow a lender to limit or disable a vehicle if payments are missed. These technologies are often described as starter interrupters or remote immobilizers. While they are marketed as tools to encourage on-time payments and reduce repossession costs, they raise obvious concerns about what happens if there is an error, abuse, or a change in how such systems are regulated. In parallel, there have been public discussions and proposals in some regions about requiring certain types of remote disabling or speed limiting features in future vehicles, framed around safety, drunk driving prevention, or emission controls. Exactly how these ideas will evolve into real regulations is still unfolding, and different countries are moving at different speeds, but the direction is clear. The more networked a vehicle is, the easier it is to control it from a distance. Now, for a lot of people, this still feels abstract. They think, I pay my bills, I am not doing anything wrong, why should I care? The answer is that any system that can be flipped one way can also be flipped another way. A tool that can disable a car for a missed payment can also, in theory, be used in other contexts. A platform that reports your speed and driving behavior to an app can also feed that data into rules you did not agree to later. In contrast, an old, offline car has no built-in way to be shut down from a server somewhere. If it is parked in your driveway with fuel in the tank and the mechanical parts are working, you can turn the key and go. No one is logging into a control panel on the other side of the country to decide whether you are allowed to use it today. That difference might seem small on a normal day, but in moments of crisis, economic stress, or rapid policy changes, it can suddenly matter a great deal. And it leads to an interesting realization about what an old car really represents in your life. Offline sanctuary. When you put all of this together, the picture of an old car changes. It is no longer just the cheap beater you keep until you can afford something nicer. It starts to look like a quiet, practical form of resistance. Financially, it gives you breathing room. Without a huge monthly payment, you are not as tightly bound to your current job, your current city, or your current income level. You have more room to make changes, to take small risks, or just to reduce your overall stress. In terms of control, an older, simpler car lets you see and touch the systems that matter. You can learn how to check your own fluids, change your own filters, maybe even do your own brake job if you want to. Even if you never turn a wrench yourself, a local independent mechanic is more likely to be able to work on your car cheaply and quickly without needing corporate permission. On the privacy front, an offline car is almost silent. It does not care where you go, how you drive, or who you are with. It starts when you ask it to start and stops when you ask it to stop. No background app, no cloud server, no silent analytics. All of this adds up to something that is hard to put a price on: peace of mind. You know that your car is not spying on you. You know that if it is running, you can use it. You know that if it needs work, you have more than one option for fixing it. This does not mean everyone needs to hunt down some perfect analog car and pretend that technology stopped in the early 2000s. Life is more complicated than that. Some people genuinely need the capabilities of newer vehicles. Others just love them. That is fine. The point is that, for many of us, an old car offers a rare, practical way to step a little bit outside of a system that constantly pushes us toward more payments, more tracking, and more dependence. Of course, that raises a natural question. Who is this choice really for, and who might be better off going a different way? Who it fits? Driving an older, fully owned car is not a moral badge. It is not about looking down on people in new vehicles or pretending that you are somehow more pure or enlightened. It is simply one option among many, but it is an option that makes a lot of sense for a certain type of person. If you value autonomy, if you pay close attention to your budget, if you are the kind of person who would rather own something simple than rent something fancy, this path fits you naturally. It is also a good match if you are open to basic do-it-yourself maintenance, or you have access to a trustworthy local mechanic who understands older cars. It might be especially powerful for people who are trying to get out of debt, build their first serious savings, or step away from a high-pressure lifestyle. Dropping a large car payment can change your entire financial trajectory over a few short years, even if your income does not increase. On the other hand, there are people for whom a newer car with all the safety features genuinely makes sense. Maybe you drive long distances every day on fast highways. Maybe you have children and you want the latest crash protection. Maybe your work requires a certain type of vehicle for image or capability reasons. Or maybe you just really love new technology and are willing to accept the trade-offs fully aware. The key is not to follow the default script. Not to assume that as soon as your last loan is almost paid off, you have to trade in and start the cycle again. Instead, take a moment to ask yourself what you actually want your car to do for you. Do you want it to impress strangers for a few seconds? Or do you want it to quietly protect your time, your money, and your privacy? So here's where we land. In 2026, an old, paid-off, offline car is more than just transportation. It is a small but real way to keep more of your money, hold on to more of your choices, and shield more of your personal life from constant surveillance. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to swear off every modern convenience. You just have to be willing to question the story that says a real adult always has a big payment and the latest gadget on wheels. If this spoke to you, maybe the next time you think about upgrading, you will pause. You will run the numbers. You will consider what it would feel like to drive something simple, something you truly own, for a few more years. Until next time, take care of your tools, take care of your money, and remember, sometimes the real luxury is a quiet, old car that just lets you drive away.